Welcome back to the Forgive Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Brenda Reese, and today's episode is a story of rock bottom, radical honesty, and profound renewal. In 2024, Bryan Powers and his wife went from a pretty good relationship to complete collapse, including a restraining order. Yet out of that breaking point came an extraordinary breakthrough. Now, Bryan not only rebuilt his marriage into something stronger than ever, he's also helping others heal using the principles of integrated attachment theory. I'm wanting to learn more about that. In this conversation, we're going to explore how our deepest failures can become our greatest teachers, what attachment styles reveal about our relationships, and why forgiveness of ourselves and each other is often the missing piece in creating love that lasts. If you've ever struggled in relationships, walked through a painful breakup, or wondered if real healing is possible, this episode will speak to you. Welcome, Bryan.
Brandon, thanks so much for having me. That's quite the intro. I'm excited to hear this story. It sounds good. No, but I thank you again so much. Honestly, it's a great show. I love what you're doing to help people, and I hope we can help some people today with the story I'm about to share and some of the information that I've learned as well, and hopefully we can help some people today. So thanks so much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. And of course, I love your personality and I love your energy. And I think that that's beautiful because that's also what helps people, right? Which we're going to get into your story in just a second, when you go from something like we talked about before hitting record to today,
Yeah.
this is remarkable.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what brought you here and, kind of what that story is.
Yeah, I mean, what brought me here today is really, 2024. My relationship would go from, like you said, a pretty good relationship, with no major concerns, no major financial issues, or what are no really those big red flags, right? There's no infidelity. We loved each other. We cared for each other. We had a pretty good relationship. We had some different parenting styles, some different ideas about things in
Yeah.
general, but overall, pretty good relationship, right? But all of a sudden, early 2024, February, we would have a fight about my son and some parenting styles and she would challenge me at that point to see a therapist. She thought I had some issues, and I said, okay, well, fair enough, I'll go ahead and see a therapist, but I need you to see a therapist because in my mind she had all the issues, and in her mind I had all the issues, right? That's the first thing I learned through all this, is that we always think it's the other person, and the truth is we all have our own issues, and we all have some things that we can learn and grow from it and change, and if we're willing to, we can learn these things and do that. But if we're not willing to look at ourselves, then it does become a hard journey, and a lot of times we can stay stuck in these unhealthy cycles, which is where I was for so many years, and my wife were. Subconsciously, we didn't realize some of the things we're doing. A lot of it is trauma based from childhood, and the things that we learn in life. Sometimes we just pick up these bad subconscious thoughts, if you will, and those subconscious thoughts are really running the show, unfortunately. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. So, when you think about your relationship, you just mentioned that there wasn't really anything wrong, but was there something missing? Was there
Oh
something
yeah.
that you felt was not
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, looking back, I mean, we absolutely had our disagreements. We didn't have the coping, skills to fight right. We didn't know how to fight, like we didn't know how to fight and do it right. My wife would stonewall me. It was a thing. If I, she would just shut down for days, which would trigger my emotions, right? And now it's gonna, make me feel, kind of like all over the place emotionally. And we just didn't know how to do it, right? And so, so those things over time, looking back, yes, I could see there were some red flags. There were certainly things to be a little concerning about. And I wish I had paid more attention to those. And I wish we had started sooner trying to, really work on those and figure them out properly, because they remained unresolved, and really just we kind of sweep them under the rug for so long. They
Mm.
really do begin to fester, right? Though, and then over time, things get worse and worse, and it seems like you're revisiting the same fights all the time. And what I learned is you're revisiting the same fights because it never really did get resolved in the
Yeah.
first place. And so, so this is why we find ourselves, talking about the same things. And after years of this, sometimes we go, that person just never listens. And, we're just not connecting, we don't know how to
Yeah.
communicate with each other and all these other things. So yeah, I wish I could go back and, turn the clock back and look at the small warning signals before they get to the big one. So if you are in that stage where you're seeing some issues there, pay attention. Let's get those fixed before they become bigger issues.
Well, yeah, and I think and like what I'm hearing you say, it's about communication too and listening, right? It's about that communication because you start to notice it's like they don't listen to me or we have the same arguments or you have the same irritations, right? And when they're not addressed, you get that where people say we're growing apart,
Sure.
right? Did you feel that too? It's kind of like growing apart kind of feeling?
Honestly, I can't say that I felt like we were growing apart. It was a little bit of those frustrations. Because we did really love each other. We didn't
Yeah,
feel
okay.
like we needed to end the relationship, but we also didn't know how to handle these fights. And what happened to us was our childhood trauma would start to play out. And this is what I've learned is,
Yeah.
a lot of our fights come because of our subconscious patterns that we developed. And now these patterns, we get into the relationship, everybody falls in love. We go through the first, year, 2 years, 3 years, everything's great. And then all of a sudden we get into what's called the power struggle stage of the relationship. And now these little fights, these little nuances begin to take shape. And now find ourselves arguing with our spouse. The person that we once loved is like, and the things we loved about them sometimes are now the things that we can't stand anymore. And now we're frustrating and all this other stuff. You're like, what is going on here? That doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and that's where I learned that there's so many little factors here, and really the six core elements to the integrated attachment theory program, which we'll talk about here today, I find are the key elements to really begin to heal this and bring it all together. Because when you work on all six of these things, it's a game changer for sure. Communication being one of them for sure. That's a big one.
Oh, this is good. I can't wait to get into that. But I also wanted to find out. So, in your story
Yeah.
is so you started and you went to counseling, is that correct? But you've got a little restraining order in here somewhere. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure my
Oh, you want
listeners
to
are
talk about that?
I'm sure my listeners are like going, "Wait a minute. There was a
Yeah.
restraining order mentioned. What happened?"
So really, when we started going to see some therapy, I was seeing a therapist. She was seeing a childhood trauma specialist. Although it was helpful, it actually also kind of added a little bit fuel to the fire because the emotions were starting to come up more. And my wife would come home from therapy sometimes, and she would remember some things from childhood that were just triggering her emotions and bringing things to the forefront. But it really became this emotional, combative emotion between my childhood wounds and her childhood wounds,
Oh.
and we were just emotionally destroying each other. There was never, I want to make it clear, there was never a physical threat. I never physically threatened my wife at all. I would never do that. But the emotional turmoil that would come because of this and this dysfunctional stuff that we were going through, she would seek a restraining order for emotional safety. And when she did that, I really kind of gave up on that at that point. I was trying to fight to save the relationship. She was asking for space and all this stuff. But when the restraining order came, I said, okay, it's over. I just can't fix this. I don't know what to do anymore. This has delved into something that's beyond my comprehension.
Yeah.
So I just decided, hey, I was going to move on, but I did want to do the work. I did want to learn from it. I did want to grow from this. I had been fortunate enough to come across the integrated attachment theory program about a month before
Oh,
the,
okay.
the restraining order. So I was already interested in this stuff. And once that restraining order came about, I said, okay, I just want to go headlong into this and really learn it and figure it out. And, I want to have a great relationship with somebody in the future. I didn't think it would be my wife at the time. I didn't think we'd maybe have a second chance. But I was just willing to. So I did the work really to let her go and to accept everything and move on, right? But really through doing that work and doing that is really what allowed her to come back, and for both of us to kind of come back around and do it in a way that's healthier now and much better than it was, like 1,000 times better than what we had before. But it did take some work. It did take letting that old relationship go, if you will, and
Yeah.
then allowing it to come back around the way it needed to. And I was fortunate enough to have it come back the way it did for me. Sometimes that other person may not come back, right? That can happen, and we have to accept that. I didn't know that she would come back. I thought she wouldn't. I was already moved on in my mind that it was never going to happen. But I just think sometimes we don't know. So let's just put that on the shelf and accept that we don't know, and do the work necessary, and then just see where things come back around. And that's a really hard thing to do sometimes. But when we do that, yeah, I do believe things can work in our favor.
Well, I love that you mentioned so, I like the fact that the restraining order actually helped because this is it will sometimes when we think we're hitting the bottom or something's over, it has to be over. The old way has to be over so we can begin something new, right? That's the definition of transition. You have to have an ending to have a
Yeah.
new beginning. And I'm curious because especially I'm gonna be a little bit, well, I'm gonna say as a man, um, being interested in attachment styles or, that fascinates me because some of the men are not. Do you think it was because of the therapy that you were in that kind of opened you up to it? How did you even get interested in the integrated attachment
Yeah.
theory?
Yeah, so when everything was starting to happen, the emotions were there. I was searching for answers, and yeah, therapy was helpful, but I was still just looking anywhere I could go. And I happened to jump on YouTube. I know sometimes you can find some,
Mhm.
interesting stuff there. And
Yeah,
I came across a great podcast with a woman named Thais Gibson. It was on the Mel Robbins show, and
yeah,
she did about an hour and 15-minute explanation of attachment styles.
yeah.
And as she did that, I said, "Oh my God, like this made a lot of sense." And I saw my wife was really kind of leaning a lot more what's called dismissive avoidant. At the time, I was definitely more anxious, preoccupied at my anxiety and, trying to cling on to the relationship and everything else. I just saw this as, oh my God, there's some real answers here. And I tried to, learn as much as possible, but it was kind of a little too late type of thing where as I
Okay.
was learning it, the relationship was still just at that critical stage where we just weren't able to kind of really get it straightened out before the restraining order happened. But yeah, ultimately the restraining order would prove to be an amazing tool that gave us what we call, a lot of times people call it, like when no contact, right? So it's that no
Yeah,
contact time.
yeah,
And I truly
yeah.
believe that no contact can be the greatest thing for a relationship. It's
Yes.
very hard to do. Okay. And that's why the restraining was great for us because it forced us to have no contact, right? So I couldn't reach out to her and try to save and talk to her at all. So it was literally just okay, move forward. But again, no contact can be awesome for your relationship. Don't be afraid of using that as a healthy tool and give it time to heal. And I truly believe for me, I don't think we should reconnect with our spouse until we really have let things go. We're emotionally balanced now. We've got some more tools. We're really in a stronger point because if we do try to make that connection and it doesn't come back around, that can be really devastating too. So we have to get ourselves to an emotional state where we're okay. Not saying we're happy about it, not saying that's what our goal is, not saying we want
Right.
that to happen, that person to walk away, but we want to get to the point where we can honestly be happy for them even if they are with somebody else. And that's what happened to me. I got to that point where I said, you know what? And I always said it when we were in the relationship, I'd rather be happy with somebody else than miserable with me, right?
Yeah.
Now I had to prove it. And now it was time to really step up and say, you know what? If that's the case, then so be it. I would really, truly rather have her be happy with somebody else than to be with me. As it turns out, she's happier with me than with anybody else. And so that was a bonus, right? But
Yeah.
again, that was a big thing. The other thing I always like to say is they call this a breakup, okay? And I always say we're going to break up. We're not going to break down. Okay. So we're going to use this time to level up. We're going to learn some skills. We're going to do some things that we're going to now level up in our relationship. Now, if we choose to break down, that's on us. We can break down, not do any work, just kind of go there and be miserable. But chances are that's not going to benefit us. And in the long run, we're going to struggle even longer and have the same issues. So let's use this time to break upwards and make it a good thing, you know?
Oh, that's beautiful. Can I ask, how long, was the restraining order? Like, how long were you apart?
Yeah, it felt like years, but it was
I
only
know.
ultimately it would be a little over 4 months.
Oh, that's
The
good.
first few months I wasn't able to talk to my son or
Oh,
my
that's
wife, right?
hard.
Because the
Yeah.
judge put my son on there as well. So it was just painful, and I was kind of just like, wow, it was a really, really tough time. I had no idea what was going on. I actually had to take her to court just to kind of get some visitation, which was, but again, she was still in her own process trying to figure life out and things. And anyway, long story short, that's really ultimately what started to happen. I was able to pick up my son, in front of the house, and little by little, we started to soften up a little bit, and all of
Mm.
a sudden we had a quick conversation, probably at about the 3-month mark, where she let me know that she really did love me and didn't want to, she didn't want this to go that way, and she was hoping that but she had no idea how I felt. She thought I hated her at that point. She thought I was,
Oh.
that was her because of everything that
Yeah.
happened, right? She just thought, he hates me. Why would he want to, even ever try to be with me again? And so, but I didn't hate her. I loved her. I know that she's human and that she had her own issues. And so, but that would lead us ultimately to get the restraining order off, which took almost another month and a half to do. But we
Wow.
didn't get to talk then that time either, So it was literally like at that point we knew we wanted to, but we couldn't. And so we still had to wait another month and that. But again, it was a great time to do more work, keep working on ourselves and keep, moving forward so that again, when we have the chance to reconnect, we are in a healthier spot and able to do it in a better way. I always say if neither one of us did the work and we did get back together, we probably would have ended up with the same problems, right?
Yes, exactly.
Or if I had done the work and she didn't, then it would still be a tough situation. Or if she did the work and
Exactly.
I didn't, it would have also been tough. But because we had both done the work, it was able to kind of work out in our favor. Now, I do always say that one person doing the work is better than no one doing the work. So if nothing else, do the work for yourself though, because
Mm.
ultimately you're the one that's going to be able to have relationships. When you learn how to, have good ones, you're going to be able to have those. And if your spouse, unfortunately, stays in that negative zone, stays in that really unhealthy area, you may have to move on with your life, and you may have to say, hey, that's not a good relationship for me anymore. Thank you for the time, but maybe it is time to move forward and now embrace somebody new that can meet you with the same capabilities, that you can have a healthy, secure
Mhm.
relationship where you know how to meet each other's needs, you know how to communicate well, you know how to, work together in a way that's different, right? And
Yeah.
that's just the way sometimes life works, is that sometimes it does take these things to move us along a little bit.
Oh, it does. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to give kudos to your wife for being so brave and courageous to let you know how she felt, not knowing how you felt. I mean, that right there, it can keep people from coming back together. They're afraid, right? Like, oh, he hates me or she hates me, and there's no way. So I'm really glad that she was brave and courageous. And I think that's part of the work where we can stand right and say, you know what, I'm going to be okay regardless of your answer. Right, when we do the inner work, we can go, I'm going to be yeah, I'm going to be sad if
Yeah.
it doesn't work, but I can move forward. I mean, that's powerful.
Well, what really started that conversation was I truthfully was just asking her to forgive me for my part in things, and that was the beginning of that conversation. So you talk about forgiveness, right? It was
Oh,
because
yes.
I simply just and at that point I knew that I wasn't perfect. I had made mistakes in the relationship, and I just wanted to say, hey, look, I'm sorry for my part. I'm sorry it ended this way,
Mhm.
right? I'm sorry that things happen like this. It's, please forgive me. And then she was like, yeah, please forgive me, like, and all this stuff. So it was one of these, it was just a really wonderful moment, and yeah, so that was really the beginning of us beginning to put this back together. You have to be able to forgive each other, when you go through something like this.
Yes.
Both sides have to have true forgiveness in their hearts, and be willing to move forward without holding the past against that other person, as well. You can talk through a little bit, it's okay, but at some point you have to let that go and move forward with this new stuff, right? You can't just keep throwing up the past.
No, you can't. And forgiveness is important either way, whether you reconcile or not, whether you get back
Correct.
together or not. It's
That's right.
power, it's for us, right? Like the
Absolutely.
forgiveness, like you're feeling yourself. It's like for you to be able to say to her, please forgive me,
Yeah.
is beautiful. And not everybody gets that.
Yeah.
Right? But we can still forgive ourselves, each other, the circumstances, and move on because, like have said throughout this, it's just the childhood wounds. It's the trauma that's playing out. If we can both address that, then we can get clarity on really, is the relationship solid enough? Do we want to continue on? Because I remember, because my pattern, was I kept thinking I was choosing unavailable men, right? It was their fault, their problem. Until when I started doing my own work, is like, oh, wait a minute, I'm the one that's unavailable.
That's
I
right.
keep attracting,
That's right.
people that are unavailable.
That's,
Oh, crap. I
yeah.
got to do my own work. I'm
That's
the
right.
common denominator.
I love that. It's amazing once we finally come to that realization that it's us, not everybody else.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, it was like, aha, like, duh, the
Yeah.
angel sang, right?
Yeah.
Finally, she gets it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd love to dive into these attachment styles if you would love to share in this integrated attachment theory. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to let you go.
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick synopsis about attachment styles and attachment theory, if you will, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the integrated attachment theory
Great.
program, which actually begins to heal and move us forward with the different attachment styles. So, attachment theory has really been around since the 70s. It's been a thing, right? So, and basically what it is it's how we attach in relationships, and there's four major attachment styles. Number one, you have a secure attachment style. These are people that know how to communicate. They're emotionally balanced. They kind of they know how to set boundaries, healthy boundaries, enforce those boundaries. They just do it right. And, and for whatever reason, they've managed to figure out how to do that. And whether they've come through difficult childhoods or even good ones, sometimes even
Yeah.
kids who come through good, healthy parenting, if you will, sometimes can still deal with some trauma and still deal with some issues and
Mhm.
may go through some things. So just because you come through healthy, good parenting doesn't always mean you're going to know how to have a great relationship right out of the gate as well. But at some point they've learned how to do that properly. And that's where we all want to get to, is to the secure stage. Unfortunately, most of us are going to fall into the other three categories, which are number one, you have like an anxious, preoccupied attachment style,
Mm.
which this person tends to be very, very relationship oriented. They really love connection. They want to communicate all the time. They're very, they're the person that texts you 10 times a day and always wants to stay connected. Uh,
That used to be me.
yeah, they can be overly, they can be overly people pleasing. Codependency can obviously,
Oh,
creep in
yeah.
there big time. But unfortunately, they kind of, again, overdo it. It's to the point where it becomes really unhealthy. And that connection is just number one in their lives, and they'll fight to do anything to keep it, even have no boundaries and let people kind of almost walk in them, if you will, just to keep the relationship. So not a healthy way
I
to go.
I understand that one.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. So that's not great. And now on the flip side, you have what's called the dismissive avoidant. These people typically have a hard time connecting with their emotions, their own emotions. Emotions are bad, right? We're not supposed to have them. If we have them, we deal with them ourselves. They're hyper independent. They really just, love their, their independence. They, have a lot of fear of being trapped. They have a lot of fear of kind of, commitment. And
Oh,
they can really have a hard time communicating as far as their emotions or anything like that. They definitely feel like if it's emotionally based or any problems, you deal with your stuff and I'll deal with my stuff. And so that's really where they are. Now we know that's not healthy either. There has to be a fine, kind of a more of a middle ground. So, but that's the flip side where they just really struggle with connection more so than the anxious preoccupied. In between those are what we call a fearful avoidant. Fearful avoidance actually swing between the two. They actually kind of
oh,
lean anxious sometimes, and then other times times they can swing to the dismissive side a little bit. They really have a trust issue is a big one for them. They have a hard time trusting people.
mm.
But they're the type of person you get in a relationship. They're great one week, and then maybe the next week they're breaking up with you for no reason, or they're having a fight with you for seemingly no reason and stuff like this. It's a little more chaotic, right? So, all three of those styles have their own issues, their own reasons for why they became that way. And a lot of that just goes back into the early childhood, how they saw things and how they learned how to cope and kind of, get their needs met as little infants, if you will, children. Unfortunately, as adults, that doesn't work in having good, healthy relationships. And that's why we need to fix those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a fourth one?
So that was the four. So it's secure, it's
Oh,
anxious,
secure. There
preoccupied.
we
Yep,
go.
that's
There
the
you go.
first one.
Got it.
That's the one we
I
all want.
see.
So
I
let's not
forgot about the
forget that
secure
one.
one.
That's the one we put on top and we say, hey, let's reach for that. Okay. Yeah. So secure, anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, and fearful avoidant.
You know what, as you were talking about that, because I remember I was listening to that episode that you mentioned.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, man, and I thought that was fabulous because, as the anxious one, I think you call it anxious dismissive. Is that what you call
Anxious, preoccupied.
preoccupied?
Yep.
Anxious preoccupied, because I think as an anxious preoccupied, I married the dismissive avoidant. I
And
was
that happens a
all I
lot.
was I was attracted
That's
to
right.
that dismissive avoidant
That's
because
right.
I could always fix them. I could always help them. But then we did that dance, right, which I know you know about, where I would come forward, he would go back,
That's
and
right.
he would come forward, I would go back, and it was
That's
just
right.
this trauma
Yes.
bonding
And that's
experience.
what happens a lot of times is we will pick somebody who's more opposite than us and we fall
Yeah.
into that dynamic of the relationship and now we get into the struggle because of the differences and we have that push-pull dynamic they call it, where yes, I'm coming closer, they're pulling away, I'm pulling away, they're coming closer. We get into this dance and it's just so unhealthy. And again, we just don't know how to, deal with each other and give each other the space. As an
No.
anxious, you want connection. As a dismissive, you want some space. And so sometimes the anxious person doesn't understand why the dismissive wants a space, and the other dismissive doesn't understand why the anxious needs so much attention, right? So,
You
so we
just
just
named all of my marriages.
it's right. There you go.
All of my past relationships
Yeah,
were just like that.
yeah,
But I thought that's how love was supposed to be, Brian.
right.
I
Yeah,
thought it would needed that tension, that,
yeah,
you know what I mean? I mean, growing
yeah,
up with it, like
sure.
like you too, it's like we have so much unmet needs that we
Sure.
think that this is the way it's supposed to be, and
Yeah.
it's not.
No, it's not. Trust me, it's a lot
Oh.
better on the side where I'm at now. After I've learned all these other how to fix those attachment styles and understand them a little bit better. I'm still a work in progress, but I've come a long way and I've definitely learned a lot of tools here, which I'm happy to share that side too.
Well, yeah, which I'd love
Yeah.
to have you do that because I now can we talk a little bit about this integrated?
Yeah, and
Attachment
that's what
theory.
I'd like to share. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
the integrated attachment theory program is created by Thais Gibson. Again, that's the person I saw the video on,
Yeah.
and she created the integrated attachment theory program, and this really begins to heal and help us navigate the attachment style. So with that, you have 6 core elements to the program. You have number one, your core wounds. Those are the perceptions, the things that we've the trauma that we built over time, and a
Yeah.
lot of that again stems from our childhood. We can pick up these things later in life too, but a lot of it does go back into our early childhood. So we're going to work on our core wounds. Number two, we're going to deal with our needs. Okay. We need to uncover what are our true needs. And then how do I meet most of my needs by myself without, I don't have to outsource my needs as much, right? So how do I meet my needs for
Right.
predominantly on my own? Number three, we want to deal with our emotions. How do I use emotions as information? Because that's really all emotions are. It's information. I have to ask myself, why am I feeling so angry? Why am I feeling scared? Why am I feeling this anxiety? Why am I feeling even happy or sad? Or what is going on? Or what are the stories I'm telling myself that are causing me to feel this way? Because that's really where our emotions come from. It's our beliefs and our thoughts, right? So beliefs
Yeah.
lead to our thoughts lead to our emotions will ultimately lead to our actions. So we're going to figure that out on the emotional side. After that, we're going to work on our boundaries. We definitely need to learn how to set boundaries, healthy boundaries, how to
Yes.
enforce some boundaries, and that can definitely take some time and some work on doing that. But that's a big one, is how to do that. And then
Yeah.
5, we want to deal with our communication skills. How do we really communicate properly? And that's been a big one for my wife and I. We definitely have some new tools that we can use and utilize, and that's been a game changer. And then last but not least, we want to change our behaviors. Okay. So when I work on all 6 of those core elements, it really does begin to change our lives. We begin to, learn how to have healthy, good communication with our spouse, and instead of arguing with each other, or when my wife would talk to me before and she was a little upset with me, I was never listening to understand her, right? I was listening to defend.
Mhm.
I was listening to tell her
Yeah.
why she was wrong and all these other things, because
Yeah.
my core wounds didn't want to accept that I had some issues, or that if she was mad at me, maybe my subconscious, I'm thinking, well, she's gonna leave. She hates me. She's mad at me. This is, and so all those little subconscious fears caused me to say, oh, well, I better deflect and tell her why she's wrong, and all this, and it's not the way to do it, right? So, yeah. So when we do all that stuff, it just becomes a mess. But when we improve on those 6 elements, man, it's unbelievable, unbelievable.
That is amazing. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And do you take people through a program? Is that what it is, through a
Yes.
process? How does that work?
Yeah, so actually I work with, Thais Gibson's program, really, because as I was going through this stuff, Thais Gibson offers a coaching program, and I just said, you know
Yeah.
what? I love the idea of being a coach. Not saying I didn't know if I would be a coach or not, but I said I just want to learn this anyway. So worst case, I'm going to learn this information and apply it to my life. And so I took her coaching program, and that's how I learned a lot of this stuff, and continue in that school with her. So
Good.
her school is called the Personal Development School, and
Okay.
she has a treasure trove of videos, of workbooks that you can do, and just daily webinars where people can come on and they, get some really incredible information. What I do is I help people along. If you want to work on your own and do that, by all means. But if you feel like you want to coach somebody who can take you through the process a little bit faster, move the needle a little bit faster, and really get you the results you're looking for, you don't want to waste no time, right? You're just like, hey, I need to fix
Mm.
this. Let's get it straight. That's where I'm going to help get you through that program, and point you in the right direction based upon what you need at that time. So when you join her school through my website, which is makeyourrelationshipfail.com or myrelationshipfail.com,
I like that.
when you join, and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
When you join her school through my website, I'm going to give you a free session with me, a chance to talk. I just want to hear your story, and I will point you in the right direction, as to what to look for in the school, and maybe how to get the max, most out of that. And then from there, if you decide, hey, Brian, I want to work with you on a regular basis, we can talk about working, one-on-one, and how we can continue that process. The first thing you can do, though, is go to my website and take the attachment style quiz. That's a fun thing to do. You can kind of learn your own attachment style pretty quickly, give you a pretty good idea. I always say it's not super intuitive. It's intuitive enough to give us a good sample, but at the end of the day, I always feel like it's gives us a good idea. But the main thing is to really learn what our core wounds are, and then begin to heal those. Because our attachment style, we can get caught up in, oh, I'm an anxious preoccupied, or I'm a dismissive avoidant, or at the
Good.
end of the day, that's not as important as what are your core wounds? What are you doing here? Yeah, what are your thoughts and those things that are causing the problem? So those things give us a little bit of an idea of what to look for, and can we can kind of categorize that so we kind of have a little bit better perspective
Right.
of, we know that if you have a lot of these core wounds, you tend to maybe gear over here. And if you have some of this behavior, some of these core wounds, you may fall into this category. So it helps us a little bit. But yeah, go there and have some fun with it, and take the quiz, and find out what your attachment style is.
Well, yeah, and I will say I want to do a plug for a coach too, because as coaching, like for me, I can do self stuff, but it's really helpful to have a coach alongside of us to be able to see something different.
Yeah.
Right? When we're looking at videos or webinars or that kind of thing, yes. But when we have somebody that knows our story,
Yeah.
they can call us out on our bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Because, going through this stuff, we try to bullshit people
Yeah.
because,
For
there's
sure.
there's going to be resistance.
Yeah.
And when we have somebody walking beside us, like you walk beside your clients and like
Yeah.
I do, it's like it's really helpful. Then you're not alone. Then they can say, "Oh, this is abandonment," or "Oh, this is rejection," or "It's okay. This is it," and you don't feel so alone.
Yeah, no doubt. I
So,
mean, it helps to have, I was fortunate to have some good connections with friends, family, and some of those people really were there for me to help, and I have had a coach myself. I did ultimately hire a coach for myself as well, which is huge, right? So I was seeing a
good.
therapist. Ultimately, I would have a coach for a little while. All these things really just really help move the needle a little bit faster, give you more clarity, and really kind of, I think, just get you moving in the right direction. So it's an investment into yourself. It's an investment into your life, your relationships, your future. So to me, there's nothing, more important than sometimes investing into that. Yeah, if you're able to do it, for sure.
Right, if you're able to do it, and that's
Yeah.
great. I'm so glad that you offer that for people. And is that a free session that they can have, right?
Yeah, so if you join the personal development school through my website, and you can do monthly there, you can do 3 months at a time. You can do,
Okay.
they're very reasonable programs that you can get started on. If nothing
Good.
else, do the first month. It's like 50,
Yeah.
60 bucks or something for a month, and at least see what that does for you, because literally within a month, sometimes people are like, "Oh my God, I'm learning so much here in just a month," compared to sometimes people go through therapy, and there's nothing wrong with therapy. It can be
Nope.
great, but sometimes people go to therapy for 5, 10, 15 years, and
Yes.
they'll get more out of 6 months, or to a year of the personal development school than sometimes long-term therapy can do. So I think it's a great conjunction. I think it's great to maybe do some therapy and also do the program, but sometimes maybe we don't even need the therapy, or maybe we need, like, you got to find your way a little
Yeah.
bit, but everybody's a little bit different. But I do think it's an incredible tool to add into, your potential of getting some healing and moving forward. Certainly if you've gotten to the point like me where it's hypercritical, and you've got restraining orders, or you've broken up, and you're dealing with these patterns, and you don't know how to fix it, and like, if you're like me, where you're just like, man, I'm just done, I'm exhausted, I want to figure this out, I want to get it done, and learn this stuff, then
Mhm.
yeah, let's come check out my website, check out the personal development school, and let's see what we can do to get you in the right direction.
Well, I love that you have myrelationshipfail.com.
Yeah, so people laugh at that. I mean, and that's really my thing. It's, obviously we don't want to make our relationship fail. All right. That's not our goal. But I truly believe that sometimes failure is the missing ingredient that we need. It's the ingredient that sometimes it needs to happen, to get us to the next step. And so if you're in that state where the relationship has failed, and you're at a, breakup point or whatever it is, I just want you to know that there's hope. I promise you. Again,
Mhm.
it's a call to break up. We're going to use this to level up. We're not going to use this time
Love
to
that.
go down. We're going to use this to improve. We're going to change. We're going to learn some things here, and it is going to work to our benefit. I used to think when I went through these things that I was being punished. Okay. The truth
Mhm.
is, you're not being punished. You may feel like you're being punished right now. The world is collapsing. It's the worst thing in the world. I always say there's nothing worse in the world than, losing the person you love simply because you don't have the tools necessary to keep them. So I understand your heartbreak. But I promise you right now, you're going through the heartbreak for a reason. And that reason is to teach you and to help you get to the next step, so you never have to go through a heartbreak again like this. Okay. And we don't know, again, what that other person that, is going to do either. And that can always come back around too, but we have to do the work. We have to focus. So let's use this time to level up. And that's why I say make your relationship fail. It's not about making, we don't want failure, but failure is often, unfortunately, sometimes a big part of what we need. And that, I always say, it's like, I always say things are like, it's like a Super Bowl. I feel like I'm a Super Bowl, right? a super ball, if you take a super ball, the harder and faster you throw it on the ground, the higher that super ball can bounce. So right now, it may feel like the hardest time of your life. It may feel like that this is the most miserable, the most difficult experience. But the truth is, this can be the greatest thing that ever happened to you. And
Oh,
you can go higher and farther and faster because you're going through this really difficult challenge. But and I promise you, you learn so much. You can grow so much. Those are the times we learn and grow the most, is when we're being challenged. If we're just cruising through life, and it's nice to cruise at times. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
I love those times, right? Those are good times too. But when I'm going through crisis, when I'm going through these really difficult challenges, that's the time I'm learning and growing more than any time else in my life.
Mic
You
drop.
know? Mic drop. There you go.
Mic
Boom.
drop. Oh my God, that was fabulous, Brian.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope that the listeners today, I hope that you got something out of this. I mean, I sure did. And, you know, Brian's story reminds us that even in the darkest chapters, there's always a path toward healing and wholeness and stronger connection. You know what the key is? Owning our part, extending
Yeah.
forgiveness, like he said, and doing the inner work to break those old patterns. And he shared that. So, just a reminder, if you're curious about your own attachment style, Brian has a free quiz, like he mentioned, which I love, myrelationshipfail.com. And when you join the personal development school through his site, you'll receive that complimentary, which I highly suggest, 1 hour consultation to help you begin your journey. So thank you so much, Brian, for joining us today, and everybody listening. And remember, if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs hope in the middle of their relationship struggle. And always remember, forgiving yourself is the first step toward creating the love and the life that you deserve. And take care. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and share this episode, and then follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care.